In the next few minutes, you are going to see why a discovery from 1896 still controls your bank account today. Why a tiny head start in your 20s can quietly become a fortune by your 50s. And why, mathematically, everyone getting rich at the same time may actually be impossible. Stay until the end. The answer changes how you think about money. Imagine someone makes you a simple offer. Give them 1 rupee today. Tomorrow, they double it to 2. The day after, 4. Every single day, for 30 days, your money doubles. Most people glance at that deal and shrug. It sounds small. 1 rupee, 2 rupees, 4 rupees. Slow. But by day 10, you have over 500 rupees. By day 20, you have over 5 lakh. By day 30, you have more than 500 million rupees from one single rupee. That is what exponential growth looks like. And it is also, in a strange and uncomfortable way, the answer to a question almost everyone has asked at some point in their life. Why can't everybody get rich? Why does it always seem like the same handful of people, families, and companies keep pulling further and further ahead, no matter how hard everyone else works? The honest answer has very little to do with effort. It has almost everything to do with math, structure, and something far stranger than most people realize. In 1896, an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto was studying land ownership in Italy. He noticed something odd. Roughly 20% of the population owned roughly 80% of the land. Curious, he checked other countries. The same pattern showed up again and again. A small percentage of people controlling a disproportionate share of the wealth. Today we call this the Pareto principle. And it is not just a quirk of old European land records. It shows up in modern income data, in business revenue, in city populations, even in which words you use most often in a sentence. It is one of the most consistent patterns in human systems. Why does this happen? Because wealth does not grow the way most people think it grows. It does not grow in a straight line, where 10 units of effort produce 10 units of reward. It grows the way your rupee grew in that 30-day challenge. Compounding. Building on itself. Getting faster the longer it runs. Here is the part that changes everything. A head start, even a tiny one, does not stay small. It compounds. The person who started with slightly more capital, slightly better information, or slightly earlier timing does not just stay slightly ahead. Over years and decades, that small gap multiplies into an enormous one. In 1968, sociologist Robert Merton studied this pattern in scientific careers and gave it a name that has stuck ever since: the Matthew effect, borrowed from a line in the Gospel of Matthew about the rich getting richer. Merton found that scientists who received early recognition and resources went on to receive disproportionately more recognition and resources later, even when their actual work was not meaningfully better than their less recognized peers. The early advantage compounded. It became a structural advantage that had almost nothing to do with raw talent. This is not a story about good people versus bad people, or hard workers versus lazy ones. It is a story about how compounding systems behave. A snowball rolling downhill does not need to roll any harder to get bigger. It just needs time and a system where gains accumulate on previous gains. Money is exactly that kind of system. Capital invested today earns returns. Those returns get reinvested. They earn returns on returns. Meanwhile, someone starting from zero is not just behind by the original gap. They are behind by every single round of compounding they missed. So if you have ever wondered why two people can work equally hard, equally long hours, with equally sharp minds, and still end up in wildly different financial positions 20 years later, this is a meaningful part of the answer. The system does not reward effort in a straight line. It rewards position, timing, and starting conditions. And then it compounds whatever advantage already existed. But compounding capital is only one half of this puzzle. There is something even stranger going on underneath all of it. Something about what the word rich actually means, and why mathematically it may be structurally impossible for everyone to have it at the same time. So here is the strange part. The part that has nothing to do with compounding or starting conditions or luck. What does it actually mean to be rich? Most people answer that with a number, a house, a car, a bank balance with enough zeros to feel secure. But economists who study wealth and happiness have found something uncomfortable hiding underneath that number. Being rich is not really about how much you have. It is about how much you have compared to everyone around you. This is sometimes called relative wealth, and it explains a pattern that confuses almost everyone the first time they hear it. If every single person on earth woke up tomorrow with 10 times more money than they have today, almost nobody would feel 10 times richer. Prices would adjust. Expectations would adjust. The person who felt comfortable yesterday would feel exactly as comfortable or exactly as anxious the day after. Why? Because rich was never an absolute amount. It was always a position in a comparison. Rich means having more than the people around you, not having a specific number of rupees. And this is where the math becomes almost unforgiving. If wealth is fundamentally a comparison, then by definition, not everyone can be above average at the same time. Some people mathematically must be below the middle for there to be a middle at all. You cannot have a world where everyone is in the top 10%. The moment everyone has the same amount, nobody is rich anymore, because richness only exists relative to someone who has less. This single insight reframes the entire question. Why can't everybody get rich is, in some sense, the wrong question. The better question might be, why does a society built on comparison make some people feel endlessly behind, no matter how much actual progress they make? Behavioral economists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky spent decades studying exactly this kind of irrationality. Their research on loss aversion showed that people feel the pain of falling behind far more intensely than the pleasure of moving ahead. This means the comparison game is not just mathematically unwinnable for everyone simultaneously. It is psychologically punishing even for people who are, by any historical standard, doing extremely well. There is one more layer to this, and it might be the most important one. Economist Raj Chetty and his team at Opportunity Insights spent years tracking the financial outcomes of millions of American children based on where they grew up and which families they were born into. Their findings were sobering. A child born into the bottom 20% of household income has a dramatically lower chance of reaching the top 20% than most people assume. And that chance varies enormously depending on something the child had zero control over: geography. Some neighborhoods, even within the same city, produced wildly different odds of upward mobility for children with otherwise similar starting points. In other words, before a single decision is made, before a single hour of effort is spent, location and birth circumstance are already shaping the range of outcomes available. This does not mean effort is meaningless. It means effort operates inside a system that was never built to give everyone an equal starting line. So why can't everybody get rich? Partly because wealth compounds, and compounding rewards early position more than constant effort. Partly because the word rich only has meaning in comparison to others, which makes universal richness a mathematical contradiction, not just an economic failure. And partly because the starting line itself was never equal to begin with. None of this means the pursuit is pointless. It means the pursuit looks different once you understand the actual mechanics underneath it. Compounding rewards early starts, so starting earlier, even small, matters more than starting big. Comparison games reward stepping outside the comparison entirely, focusing on your own progress rather than someone else's pace. So go back to that first deal. 1 rupee doubling every day for 30 days. It looked small at the start. It looked unremarkable for almost 2 weeks. And then, quietly, it became something enormous. That is not just how money compounds. That is how almost everything that matters compounds. Skill, relationships, knowledge, patience. The rupee was never really the point. The 30 days were. If this video changed the way you think about wealth, you are not alone. Understanding the system is the first step to actually using it. Subscribe for more videos that break down the hidden mechanics behind money, history, and human behavior.